Hi guys, this is JP from FSiPanel. Welcome to this video where we will try to fly a complex approach in Sion, Switzerland. This is a very nice airport in the middle of the mountains, and we will be using the iFly 737 NG Advanced series to see how she can fly a complex approach. In this airport we have two kinds of approach. We have an LSGS approach on runway 25, which is a kind of ILS but with an offset track, or RNPAR with authorization required. This is what we will try to do today. Okay, as you can see, this is the chart now for Sion RNP runway 25 AR, which means authorization required. So you need to have permissions from the authorities and some special training. It is okay for category A, B, and C. The 737 is category C for the 800 series. And there is a couple of cautions you can see here on the chart. First of all, the angle of descent is 3.6. So if you have heavy aircraft, your ground speed might be, if your speed is more than 150 knots, you will have probably more than 1000 feet per minute to maintain the 3.6 degrees descent, which can result in an unsafe approach and unstabilized approach. And as well, in these procedures, we are crossing Class E airspace in Switzerland with VFR traffic, so we have to be very careful. And as well, you can see that on final approach, we have an offset of 8 degrees right of the runway center line. So this is a nice approach, as you can see, coming over the mountains. We'll go on the outbound track here at 15,900 feet, and then we will turn inbound on the valleys here in the middle of the mountain, starting our final descent at the waypoint Golf Sierra 608, which is right there. And we will do turns and reach the final for runway 25 with a light offset, as we saw. RVR required is 1,500 meters for category B. Today we are category C, so we need 2,400 meters. As I can see now on active sky, we have nice weather today in Sion, so it should not be a problem for us. We have more than enough. Alright, so let's program that in FSiPanel. In my P3D, I have the 737 loaded as always. I didn't do anything, I just have my fuel and my payload, and I didn't touch anything else. So let's start FSiPanel, and we will prepare this approach. So when I start FSiPanel, I can see that the airport has been detected, the runway has been detected, and the iFly 737 as well has been detected. So now we just need to set up this approach, and we will use the snapshot mode as well during this training scenario. So let's see that now. If we want to do that approach, the initial approach fix is Grana. So what I will do, I will try to position my aircraft just before the initial approach fix. So somewhere around here, 5 miles, let's say about 5 miles southwest of Grana. And the altitude should be at Grana 17,000 feet, right? Because at Golf 616, we should be at 17,000 feet. So we'll start Grana 17,000 feet, 5 miles southwest of it. So how to do that in FSiPanel? Well, we're gonna select a fix. I will try to see either I can use a waypoint or a star. So let's try the waypoint fader. So we'll create a new waypoint. And as you can see here, I can enter the latitude or longitude, but this is not what I want to do. I want to pick a naved or a fix. And it is a fix, so make sure you have fix. And the waypoint name is Golf Romeo Alpha November Alpha, Grana. So we will try to type in Grana, Grana, search. We can see that we have found one position, which is 9 miles from the airport Sion. That should be it then. If I click it and I select that waypoint, it is now active there. Now what radial do I want to be from Grana? So be careful with the radial. So if I look in the chart there, okay, we can see that the inbound track is, let's say 066 here. So that will be the radial 246, right? The radial 246 and 5 miles. So let's program that. So we can take the radial, let's say 245, that's good enough. And 5 miles, this is perfect. Now what I need to do is compute my coordinate. I have my coordinate. The default altitude we set 17,000. And I would like the aircraft to be heading 065, the opposite of the radial. So we are going toward the Grana waypoint. I will call it Grana. And description, this is for training the RNP25. Save the waypoint. Waypoint has been created. So now I can use it, as you can see, for my training. Another way to do that, I can show you that if we go to the star, I could choose any star in Sion, and most probably, as you can see, this waypoint is already there. So I could use that one, and it has already some default values that I can change by simply clicking on it. So this is as well how you could find a waypoint on your star. So for today, we're gonna use our waypoint that we just created. 65, 17,000, and the offset is if I want to add more than the 5 miles that I already defined on my waypoint. I'm happy with that, so I will just click on validate. So if we look in the summary, we should be positioned at 17,000 feet over Grana waypoint that we created, which is in fact 5 miles before Grana. And if I click move aircraft, we will go in the air. So let's go for it. Move aircraft. Let's time and see how long FSiPanel needs to prepare that. So here we go. We can see that the gear is going up. We are reaching 17,000 feet. FMC now is getting programmed. And we should be ready in around 40 seconds maximum. So we are waiting now for the 17,000 feet to be captured. And 17,000 is coming there, so it should be within 40 seconds we should be ready. On the top left of your screen, we will get the message, aircraft ready. So as you can see, it took us around 44 seconds to be ready for this approach. All right, so the aircraft is at 17,000 feet, stable, ready for you to program your approach. So now the aircraft is basically frozen in the position, and as you can see, we have a message, aircraft ready for your training, hold your brake for 2 seconds to take control. So now what I will do, I will program my RNP approach. All right, so let's go into the FMC, and we are going to program the arrival. We want to do a RNP25 approach, and we said the transition is Grana. So if I look now in my FMC Lex page, if I go direct to Grana, as expected, I have 065. This is what we programmed, and we are around 4.5 miles, 5 miles. This is what we did to Grana. Then we will check together the waypoints. We have 615, 616, 608, 607. So this should be here. So 615, 616, 608, 607. Then we have 654, and we should be there. So let's see that in the aircraft. 654, and now we have this is the final point at 1630 where the runway is located. All right, so we have our FMC as well. Make sure that you check your altitude. Then we will look at the cruise page to make sure we have a cruise altitude, otherwise you will not get a top of descent on your screen and the aircraft will not descend in VNAV. So make sure you just enter a new cruising altitude there. All right, now we have 17,000 feet. Do we have any restriction on speed? So if we have a look now on this approach, we can see that at Grana, the maximum speed is 210 knots. So what I will do directly in FSiPanel, or in the FMC now, I will put a speed of 210, which means now that the aircraft will be flying 210 instead of the 250 that we have here. As well, make sure you check your descent page. On the descent page, as you can see, we also have a descent of 273 knots computed. It means as soon as the aircraft would start descent, it will increase the speed to 273 knots. We don't want to increase the speed, so we'll put a restriction as well of 210 knots. So now basically we know that the maximum speed will be 210 knots. Right, so now we have done everything. What we need to do again is now look into the prog page 4. You can see here we have the RNP for the approach. So we have right now RNP2. If we look into the chart, what RNP do we need to do this approach? We will need an RNP of probably 0.3 or less. So always make sure that you double check in the chart what kind of RNP you need. You can see that done with your minima. So we need 0.3. So in my FMC again, here I will force 0.3 as the RNP. So now if I deviate more than 0.3, I will get the amber informations there on my PFD. And I will get as well an FMC message that I'm out of tolerance, and we will we will discontinue the approach. As for the vertical navigation, the recommendation is to go for 125. If you can put it there, she will not accept it. Okay, let's see here. All right, so disregard that. Just go for 0.3. Another thing which is important, if you go to your position and we go to nav status, we check the nav options. Make sure that here you do not update your position on VOR or on DME. Normally the 737 is taking all the information from the GPS, but should you have a loss of GPS for some times in the air, then what's going to happen, the FMC will try to update its actual position based on the VOR. So it might get some information from VOR next to Sion, like Geneva, Saint-Pré, some VOR around, and then it will compute a position and update its position. And you might be hitting a mountain there. So make sure that you deselect DME update and VOR update if you are doing a RNP approach. So now you tell your FMC, use only my GPS. Even if you have a GPS loss for a couple of seconds, you can still fly with good RNP. And you will get as well a caution FMC message if you getting out of tolerance. All right, so now our FMC is ready. We will just set our minima. So for this approach, the minimum is category C 3098. So let's go for 3098. It's a baro minima. And that will take me forever to do it. But still, I will do it. Maybe you know, guys, a way to do it much faster. For me, I just discovered this iFly 737. It's the first time I will try a non-precision approach. And we will see the indication as well on this approach. We will see the deviation. We will see everything and see how she handled it. It is not easy to reproduce that level of automation. So let's see. I'm looking forward to see how she fly that approach. All right, so 3098, we're coming there slowly but surely. Don't tell me. All right, good. 3098. Here we go. I have my minima now. There, 3098. Make sure as well, you see here on your PFD, we have a localizer indication. The best thing to do now is do not select an ILS. If you have a VOR as a backup, use the VOR. If we look in Sion here, we have Sion 11215, so I can use 11215 as a backup, but do not set a localizer. This might give you some problem. You might get disorientated with the localizer deviation. Especially there is an IGS approach on this airport. So if the track is not the same, you might go for the track of the IGS while the altitude is too low, and that could give us a terrain problem. All right, so now we are all set for the approach. I've set my minima and everything. So what I will show you now is the snapshot feeder as well. So let's imagine that we would like to reproduce this approach over and over and over again. Then we can save the actual cockpit, and then we will not need to program our FMC anymore. So one more thing here, the 3.6 descent, sorry, I will go for flaps 40 landing. right? And the course here for reference, we will set it as well to the final course of the approach. So the final course to the approach there is 243. So I will put 243 as course on both sides. Well, I will put it only on that side to save a little bit of time, but you will put it on both sides normally. 243, so now we have everything done. I'll go to FSiPanel and I will take a snapshot there. So when you click take snapshot, it takes a couple of seconds and you will get a window like this, and you can just put whatever you want here. So it's a RNP25 and this is LSGS Grana position. Save my snapshot, and now this is done. I'm ready to do that over and over again if I need to. All right, so let's fly this approach now. So if I release, now I take the control, as you can see on top of the screen. Hold your brake 2 seconds to take control. That's what I'm doing now. And the first thing we want to do is arm LNAV. And now what's going to happen if I push VNAV? If we've done everything correctly, the window should become black and the speed should reduce to 210 knots. And this is exactly what's happening. Great. Make sure your 210 knots is above up speed. All right. And now we're going to have our approach. 210 knots, 17,000. Where is my top of descent? We can check that in our map mode. Right, so this is the top of descent. The aircraft will not descend before there, so make sure you are fully stabilized with the gear down and flaps 40 before reaching that point. Another good hint for the FMC is to give the FMC the speed that you will have at that point, because now she's expecting you to fly maybe a bit faster there. So we could as well reduce the speed in the FMC. So if we look there, we can see that she's expecting 160 or below, which is good. If you will not have that information there, make sure that you change the speed there to something lower, otherwise the descent profile will not be working properly. So let's fly that. I will go a little bit forward because the top of descent is coming right there. So to save a bit of your time, we will fly a bit faster. All right, we are back at normal speeds. It's a long approach, but yeah, as you can see now, we are in the middle of the valleys. This is exactly where we want to be. We want to be safe in the middle of the mountains. So now let's see how she flies that. Don't forget to lower your altitude in the MCP window or nothing's gonna happen. So what altitude do you want to put here? Well, this depends on your airline SOP. Either you will monitor everything and you will go directly for the minima, or some airlines will require you to go step by step. So in our case, I will just put 3,100 and I will monitor my descent path. So when you do that, if you will put 3,100, what I'm doing right now, make sure that you fly with VNAV. If I will push level change because I'm a bit high, or vertical speed or any other vertical mode, you might go lower below your profile and you might hit the ground. So be very careful if you go directly with your minima to fly only with VNAV. You need to have VNAV path. If you see VNAV altitude there, nothing's gonna happen. She will not descend. If that's your case, just go back to your FMC and enter a new cruising altitude on the cruise page. All right, now we have top of descent coming very soon. Around 5 or 6 miles before the top of descent, we will start to configure the aircraft to slow down because it's a 3.6 degrees descent initially. And if you don't slow down, you won't be able to slow down and will be too fast, and there is a lot of chance that we go out of the profile. So be ready for that. We will start to configure now. So let's go for flaps 1. Now the FMC speed, so if I go flaps 1, the bug goes to 1 automatically. So I will let the FMC do the job for me. Now that we have flaps 1 green light, we go for flaps 5. For now, it's all good. You can see here my RNP that we entered manually 0.3. The actual navigation performance of the aircraft is 0.02. So we are nicely in tolerance. This number that you can see here, 0.00, is your actual deviation from the track that you want to fly. So we are very good. You can see that as well here on your PFD. So now, for the time being, everything looks perfect. Next step, before top of descent, we will go with the gear down and flaps 15. See, we're still 30 miles from the airport. It's a long approach. All right, coming to top of descent, we have a lower altitude. If you forget to put a lower altitude, you will get an FMC message, reset MCP altitude. That will remind you it's the last time to change your altitude. If you don't do so, your VNAV path will become VNAV alt and the aircraft will not start descent. Even if you lower your altitude, you will need to use level change or vertical speed to catch your profile before you can engage VNAV again. So be careful, make sure you follow with your altitude. All right, now let's go for gear down. Arm the speed brake. As we put the gear down, we are going to put the lights and we're gonna put the engine start switches to continuous. I keep the taxi light for short final. We have a problem with the gear, as you can see, so we tried to recycle it. This is not intended, so let's see if we can manage it or not. Interesting to see why she doesn't want to give the gear down. The gear is coming out, yes, perfect. But it's not locked. All right, so let's go back to flaps 5. On flaps 10, and we will troubleshoot our problem with the gear. Gear is not down. We have 3 red indications. If I go to the overhead panel, we have here as well the light indications. They are not green, so it means the gear has an issue. Hydraulic, first thing you check is your hydraulic. So if I go to system page, I can see that I have all the hydraulic working, so the gear should basically go down. So we'll try again to bring the gear down, and otherwise we will lose the approach. As simple as that. This is a good training scenario. It's not intended at all. I was not expecting it. This is the good thing when you have a long approach. Descent, we want to go descent path. We want to see VNAV path. This is what she's doing now. So now we are safe for the altitude, right? We are good with the RNP and we have a little bit of time to troubleshoot our gear. So let's try again. We can see if there is any malfunctions there. Clear all failure. There is basically no failure at all. And the gear is not going down. Perfect. So we will try to go with gear down using the alternate gear extension. See if I can do that. All right, first of all, the gear position has to go to off. So we'll do that as per the QRH. Gear up, off. And now we will see if it is possible to use the emergency gear extensions. If it is modeled on this aircraft, I'm not sure at all. Let's see. We have it here. Pull, pull, and pull. If that works, it's great, guys. Let's see. Gear is going down. We have 3 greens. Perfect. Now we need to put the handle down. Okay, now the handle doesn't go down. Why I cannot put the handle down now? Because normally you can put the handle down. This is good. All right, we manage. Now we are reducing our speed. We are still good with the vertical deviation, lateral deviation. We just need to slow down our aircraft now. And see if we can do this landing. So that was not intended at all, this problem here, but it was a good exercise. I knew the procedure. This is why I did it without the checklist. Remember, you have to go to off to release the hydraulic pressure on the gear, use the manual gear extension, and then put the logic to down so that you have the 3 greens. All right, now we go flaps 25. We are waiting for 162 and we will be able to go flaps 40. Flaps 30 already. And now my speed is good. Flaps 40. Landing checklist. Engine start switch is continuous. Speed brake is actually extended and will be armed very soon. Remember that you can not use your speed brake below 1000 feet AGL. So now my speed brake is armed, as you can see. Landing gear is down 3 greens and the flaps 40 green light. We are nicely established on final. We have good deviation. This is my 0.3. This is my 400. So we are very nicely established. You can see 67 feet on the vertical profile and 0.09 on the lateral profile. Landing checklist is completed and we have 3 greens there and 3 greens up there. So we are good to go. Landing checklist is completed. All right, now what we need to do is check for the runway. Our minima is 3,100. We are 5,600, fully stabilized. Now let's see if we can see the airport of Sion. And keep looking at your deviation. Everything looks good. And we'll try to find out where is that airport. Remember, we have an offset of 8 degrees. So we will have to do a manual turn to establish ourselves on final, on a very short final. If I would go now, I might have a GPWS for the terrain. In fact, if I put the terrain, you can see that the approach brings us nicely in between the high mountainous area over the valleys toward the airport, and we can see that 8 degrees right there. So I will need to do a right turn. If I want to establish now, as I just said, I will need to go to the left now to establish, and I will get a pull-up warning probably around there. So this is why we will just continue go down and do the last bit, the last turn at the last minute. All right, radio altimeter is alive. We can see the airport in front of us now. It's very nice. It's a nice approach. You can see for the passengers. Let's see if we can have a look. This is what the passenger will see. Quite scary in the middle of the mountain, but very nice area to fly. And very soon, once we cross here the river, I will go slightly to the left and establish myself on final so that we can be fully stabilized above 500 feet. All right, approaching minima. Be careful there because the aircraft will not continue the descent. All right, so I will take now autopilot off and I will finish visually. Autopilot, flight director goes off. Minimum contact. Now be careful with your rate of descent. Below 1000 feet, we will need to have a rate of descent of maximum 1000 feet per minute. So this is what you can see right there with the rate of descent. Otherwise we get a sink rate and we lose the approach. Okay, we have a caution terrain. We are fully visual. 1000 feet per minute rate of descent. So here my first officer will tell me a careful rate of descent. Now we try to establish ourselves on final and looking at the PAPI as well. All right, now it seems that we are good, a bit low. So I will reduce my rate of descent, maintain the speed. Landing checklist was done. And now we will go back on the perfect profile for the landing. PAPI is coming and we have 700 feet rate of descent. 3 red is good. We will keep it like this. 500 feet stable. 2 white, 2 red. So maintain 2 white, 2 red. A bit high. Be careful here. If you correct too much, you get a sink rate. So maximum 1000 feet per minute.
50, 40, 30, terrain. Pull up. Terrain. Pull up.
And here we go. Reverses and manual braking. All right, 60 knots, manual braking, and we will just stop on the runway. Why did we get the terrain? Well, because we have EGPWS installed and probably the airport was not in the database. This is one of the reasons why you could get a EGPWS terrain. In some airline, if you get this and you are not VMC, of course, this is a go around. We were fully VMC all over the runway, so nothing to worry about. All right, so we just landed. It was an interesting scenario. What do you think about it? With this landing gear not going down, this is interesting. I don't know why it happened, but it did happen, and we managed to walk around. All right, so we just landed. As you can see, that was a challenge, but that was good. So without touching anything, now you can see the mess that I have in my cockpit with the gear down, the flaps to 40. Everything is basically... We will do a little bit of trouble for the aircraft just to play around. Let's put one generator off the bus. Let's put some anti-ice off. The idea there is to show you the snapshot feature. So I'll put anti-ice there. I will switch off here. I will switch off the air conditioning. All right, so now we basically screw a little bit our systems, as you can see. And what I will do now is try to fly the same approach again with the snapshot feature. So if I go to FSiPanel now, I can go load snapshot. And on the snapshot, I should have my LSGS runway 25 that we just saved before. I just select it and I will click on move aircraft. And now let's see what's happening. We were flaps up, so the flaps are moving up, as you can see. One thing I need to do before I forget is, of course, and we will see that, is of course to close that door, otherwise the hydraulic is blocked and your gear will not go up. All right, let's see what's happening now. I will not touch anything. As always, don't touch anything. Just let FSiPanel do the work. And what's there? We see 17,000 feet. We have our minima 3090. We have our nice route. And we definitely have a problem with our landing gear. So for that, guys, I'm not sure why that happened. I need to troubleshoot, but we have an issue with the landing gear. So that's not from FSiPanel, but I will investigate and find out why. Let's have a quick look at our overhead panel. Remember, we screwed it a little bit. So now everything is back to normal. We have our generator on the bus. We have our anti-ice on. We have everything back to normal. Our air conditioning is as well working. So this is how you could basically now fly that approach again without having to reprogram your all FMC, your minima. Everything is already done for you. All right, this is how we fly snapshots, how you fly approaches with the iFly 737NG Advanced series. This is a beautiful aircraft. I love it. And you saw the way she flew down this approach was perfect. Just an issue with that landing gear, but I'm not sure what happened here. I will troubleshoot and find the reason why it didn't go down. Maybe something from my side, or maybe just a little bug. We will check that and find for sure the answer. All right, guys, if you have any question, please drop your question below. And in the meantime, make sure you stay safe and subscribe to the channel, please, if you didn't do so yet. And see you soon for another video. Bye-bye.